Hi, this is Diana Payton with Technical Writing Uncensored, and I am here with owner of the Content Practice Architect and author, Natalie Dunbar. Hi, Natalie. Welcome to Technical Writing Uncensored.
Hey, Diana, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, what does a content designer do?
Oh my goodness, what don't we do? The the short version is that we make sure that words within a product or a digital experience actually work for the people that are using it. More and more we also, do so much more than writing. It's like we think about what information someone needs and like when they need it and how it needs to be structured. So do we need a button? Do we need a visual? Do we need an error message? Is it an onboarding flow? Is it a form? So we're thinking about, what is the mental model that someone might be, in a moment when they're using something. And we're kind of at the intersection of like language, user experience, and product strategy, asking questions about, does a label actually tell someone what to expect when when they click a label or button or whatever? Um, are our error messages, I said that backwards, are they helpful or do they just tell someone that something's wrong? All right. And then what is
Mhm.
the tone of that message? Are we wagging our finger saying you did something wrong and blaming the user? Or are we actually giving them actionable information that they can use to help resolve whatever the issue is? Sometimes we don't know. It could be something technical that we can't, that we can't fix right away, but we could at least try to guide them. And then like, are we using, consistency? Are we using the same words for the same thing everywhere? Or are we accidentally, confusing people because we call something, payments over here, but we call it billing over here, but we're talking about the same thing, right? So I would say the best content design is really invisible. It just helps things make sense. Um,
Mhm.
and when it works, so people can like move through a product or a service without any friction. And when it doesn't, people get stuck, they get confused, or they just bounce. It's like, I'm done. I can't get done what I want to do here. So that's kind of the long form of, or actually it's a short form, but it's what we do. That's what content designer. And I should say content designer, still a newer term. We are get called a lot of things. When I started this work, it was content strategy.
Mhm.
Um, I still am kind of old school. I use content strategy because that encompasses not only, the words that we write. We are helping to design and shape an experience, but we're also being strategic about it. So I use those terms interchangeably.
Fair enough. Do you consider yourself a technical communicator?
I do. Not because I sit in or work in tech, but because most of the experiences that I contribute to, if not all of them, are technical, right?
Mhm.
For a wide variety of users with a wide variety of skill sets, right? But it's all within the container of technology. So yes, doesn't hurt that I sit in a technical team in a technical department, but yes, I am a technologist at heart.
Wonderful. So, how did you get into content strategy or content design?
Huh. Um, 3 or 4 careers ago, when I finally when I finally started actually writing, not as a side thing or, a hobby, and ended up in marketing communications many years ago. This was I'm going to age myself here. This was before the internet what it is now, right?
Mhm.
But I already started to see like the power of, what these, digital platforms could do. Then I bounced over to print publications, and I was a weekly reporter for a weekly newspaper, the Pasadena Weekly. I'm in Pasadena, California, which was awesome. Also scary at times, but a great experience. And we were just starting to kind of move things online. Then
Mhm.
I went to into more of a academic setting where I learned how to hand code. Go figure. I can still make things blink, but CSS and all that is beyond me now. Um, but at every intersection, there was always this, curiosity about technology and the writing as the basic skill. So ultimately, I was laid off from a job from a company I had worked with for about 6.5 years. I started as a editorial producer, which was a fancy way of saying I was writing copy for the website. And then I bounced into product management and then user experience research. And then I came back around to content. And that's when I started hearing this phrase, content strategy, content strategy. And when I read about what it was, I was like, well, I do that. So I repositioned myself during this layoff period and started getting phone calls for people who wanted a content
Hmm.
strategist. And here we are. I started at it.
Nice.
Yeah, I started at an agency as a contract worker on a rather large public healthcare site, and the agency was like, our clients are asking for this, so can you help us build a practice out, bring more people in. The question I got asked was, how do we find more people like you? And I'm like, do you want someone short? Do you want someone female? What do you want? I cover a lot of demographics. Help me out here. But I brought in one other person who worked on content strategy purely with me. And then as we would have client projects come on, we would bring in, freelancers that would help us out when we had a lot of work to do. And so I kind of stumbled into it. There was some deliberateness, but I never thought, I would start building content practices and that would be my thing. But that's my thing, part of my thing. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, you seem to bounce a lot, which is cool.
Yeah. There's always a core through line in the work that I do. Again, the writing. I'm very curious, which is how I remember getting my first computer and trying to figure out what is this HTTP stuff, what does that mean? And just like breaking stuff and trying to figure things out. Yeah, it's just been kind of a building on skill sets. The good thing about that is, though, is I've always been in the realm of user experience since that first company where I was eventually laid off. And so I learned product development from all angles. I learned as a product manager. I learned as a content person. I learned as a user experience researcher. And it just, now that I'm back in content, it really helps me to see things from all sides. And I work with development no matter what. Um, and yeah, it's all been related. It's just not been a straight line. It's kind
Hmm.
of been like this.
Like a
Yeah.
spiral, a winding
Yeah,
path.
exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of winding paths, how does content design relate to technical documentation and accessibility?
Um, I would say they're related, but there's definitely, some distinct differences. So, and I'm not a technical documentation or a technical writing expert, but I would say, from what I understand, there's more about how the system works. It's explanatory. It's here's how to use this thing. Here's a API reference. Here's, I don't know. It lives outside of the product. It lives in help documentation, wikis, manuals, and things like that. Whereas content design lives in the product. It's the user interface itself. It's, the things I talked about earlier, the labels, the tooltips, the confirmation dialogues, even the empty states, like what is happening when there's a blank field. Are we telling people what they need to do, or are they just going to sit there and, kind of stare at it? But there's overlap though, right? Because the work that we all do, whatever you call it, there needs to be clarity and there needs to be precision, right? There needs to be an understanding of the user's mental model, what I kind of hinted at earlier. We need to be thinking about when someone needs the information, not just what the information is, right? So, if you're, documenting something that has to do with a software install, you know, what is that mental model, especially if it's more consumer driven? It's not like for a very technical audience, right? But you're still writing
Hmm.
those technical pieces. And I think the best of the folks that do the work that we both do, we have the same like core skills, putting the reader first, right?
Hmm.
The basis of all good writing, that we're not writing for the product, or in my case, I'm not writing for legal because I work in a lot of highly regulated spaces. Um, but I'm writing for the person who's like, at 11 o'clock at night trying to figure out how come I can't install this, or, well, that would be more on your side, but still, even in our world, we may have a product within a product or a feature that you have to do something and somebody's trying to figure it out. How do I help them get unstuck? How do I
Yeah.
help them to complete the task that they're trying to complete? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was so eager to get this conversation started, I realized I forgot to pin us. So hopefully all our watchers will just forgive me for doing that and just, we're pinned now. So yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, you're
And you
all
also
right.
asked me about accessibility, right? So that's a
Yes.
that's a whole nother
Really?
yeah. I mean, I feel very strongly about accessibility. And I include under that umbrella of accessibility, is a digital space safe for users? Is it accessible but is also equitable? Is it inclusive, right? Are we building an experience for one type of person? Now, if you have a very specialized product or service, maybe you are. But if you're building for the masses, we need to make sure that we're not just, treating accessibility like a checklist, like, oh, we have color
Yeah.
contrast and we have alt text, and which is very important. We have screen reader capability. All of that's important, but there's a big part that gets overlooked, and that's about, is the language that we're using accessible? Is it plain enough where people can understand from whatever place they're coming from, that they know how to use the product and service, right? Can they, do we have an error message that I just did an error message project, so that's going to come up a lot. But like, does it sound like it was written by a machine, or does it actually give someone, a resolution to the problem that they're solving? And, you know, do people understand what that means, right? That's
Hmm.
accessibility, right? We think about it as like, the digital version of the American Disabilities Act, which is very important. And even though when that was written, it wasn't inclusive of technology at the time, but it is now. um, you know, it it's just about making sure that we're not making assumptions about who's using our product or service. Um, I talked about accessibility. It was a talk that I gave way back in 2021, a year into the pandemic, and it was through the lens of yoga. And it was like, talking about diverse user bases and how we can hold space for them, and how we make sure our content hierarchy is logical for people, um, offering different paths for people to still do the thing that they need to do. Maybe someone needs to come in from a different touch point, or they do come in from a different touch point. Are they going to understand where they are in the process or in the product or service? And then really letting go of assumptions about who we think our users are, and making sure that we're not just designing for the people that are in the room and around the product table, right? So yeah, it's not accessibility to me. It's not, like I said, it's not a checklist. It's not something you add at the end. You build it in at the beginning, right? So it's about how you architect things to make sure that it's included at the beginning of whatever you're creating.
So what does yoga have to do with UX?
So, going a little deeper on that talk, it's really about holding space for a variety of people. right? So that's the yoga part is we talk a lot about holding space. I was a yoga teacher. I'm on hiatus right now, but I taught yoga for 5 or 6 years, kind of my side thing. Um, and I teach accessible yoga. So I teach yoga to all shapes, sizes, and abilities. So it's not just, to the I don't want to say typical, but media shows us a certain type of body or folks of certain abilities that practice yoga. And I'm like, look, if you're in a chair and that's where you are, then I'm going to bring yoga to you and I'm going to teach yoga to your body and not expect your body to do, this, what do they used to call it? The classic expression of the pose. Like, forget all that.
Yeah.
How do we get the benefit of that pose to your body? So same thing with technology. Like I said a few minutes ago, are we bringing you into an experience if you drop in a way that's not, if you come in through the back door because the front door is not working for you, how do we help you get situated? How do we hold space for you to be able to do what it is, whatever task it is you came to do? When I talked about content hierarchy in yoga, we do sequencing. I can never say that without stumbling, where we're thinking about, if we start on the floor, then we move to, maybe a kneeling position, then we come up and then we go back down. We're not going to have people jumping up and down, on the floor, standing
Hmm.
up. So we're going to do a sequence, right? So content hierarchy, does the sequence of the content make sense? Right. And then there's variations where we're offering different paths through content. Well, we do that in accessible yoga as well, right? So the thing
Hmm.
about not teaching uh, your body to a pose, but teaching a pose to your body, right? So I'm not going to say this is what the pose looked like. You need to do that. It's like, what is the benefit of this pose, and how can I make that benefit work for you? Same thing with digital spaces. And then there's in yoga we talk about non-attachment, and if I try to transmutate that to digital worlds, it's letting go of those assumptions, like I said earlier, about who is our user, right? Let's not assume that we know that our user is one type of person. We got to think about the fact that there might be a variety of people that might be using our products or services. So I made that connection and I gave that talk originally in 2021. And I think that's the one I've given 10 times now over the years. And
Hmm.
people still ask about it and still talk about it. So I guess it worked.
Well, it is a very human centered approach, and that is a great segue into something that is completely different. How is AI and LLM tools affecting content design?
Oh my goodness. How is it not? Um,
Well,
so
I'm certainly sure that it is not talking about content design through the lens of yoga. So,
no, no, but I heard I was at I participated in a 3-day conference over the last 3 days. Um, and I actually heard someone yesterday look at AI through the lens of history, and it was absolutely fascinating. I can't
hmm.
even go into detail because I got to go watch the recording again because I was just like, oh, this is so cool, right? It's just a totally different way of looking at things. But how is AI and LLM affecting content design? Once we all got over the fear of, oh my God, it's taking all our jobs, and we're kind of still in this weird space, um, we started to see that it could be helpful. I know for me, when I moved to a team where I was the only content designer supporting 25 product designers and probably about 15 product managers. And it was just me, and they were like, "Oh, we need you to come up with, some explorations for this thing." And I've got like 25 people asking me to do the same thing. It's like, "Oh, I can use AI to help me draft," right? Because I was working in a health and wellness space, I had to be very careful that we're not just putting out content, directly from AI. And believe me, I had some PMs that were like, "Well, yeah, I like what you wrote, but I put this into insert AI tool here, and it says this, this, and this. And I'm like, that is never going to pass through our legal department. Here's why. Here's why. You know, I'm sure
Yeah.
folks have heard the story about there was an airline, and I won't name them, and there was some thing with the bereavement fare, and
Oh God.
it was misrepresented. There was a lawsuit, and the company came back and said, "Well, we didn't write that. It was AI." It's like, yeah, but you're still responsible. It's on your website. You got to you got to take responsibility for that. And that's another thing, right? Um, Governance is a big deal for anybody that's working with any type of content. When we start talking about AI and large language models, if we're going to use those tools, which we pretty much have to now, most companies are going in that direction. Somebody's got to govern how it's used. Somebody's got to put guardrails around it. I think technical writers, content designers, all of us who are in this space, we are the ones who are probably best suited to kind of help, guide that, whether it's our experience with style guides or voice and tone, but even beyond that, like again, the consistency of how we use words and that kind of thing. But um, you know, AI is really good at guessing things, and it kind of, aggregates information from every corner of the web and beyond. Again, it has to be edited heavily. It really has to be, put through a rigorous kind of editing.
It
Um,
has to be fact checked.
exactly. So, I heard someone say, AI kind of raises the floor and lowers the ceiling. So, like, anybody can produce copy now. But the best content is the content that serves folks, like we talked about a few minutes
Mhm.
ago. And it's got to be able to navigate legal requirements, and it's got to have brand voice and, user mental models. That still requires humans to be involved. You can't ask AI to pass that judgment. So, I don't think AI is going to replace us at all. It's kind of more about what we do with it. What is our job with AI? Um, if it's handling the draft copy, for example, you know, we have to be more strategic and more systems oriented about, how we, focus on that quality and governance. So it's interesting. I mean, that's what the work always has been. Now we just have this other tool that kind of, helps us to kind of multiply our abilities, especially when
And
we're
occasionally jumps the shark. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I worked at a place that mandated that we used LLM tools. And so I used it to research something that I didn't know about, was the shadow DOM or something like that. And I turned in a draft to my engineer who I was working with. He's like, Diana, where did you get this sentence? It makes no sense. And it's like, I, as a not expert in the shadow DOM, looked at him like, okay, well, that seems to make sense. And the engineer was like, no, no,
Yeah.
it's just no. And it's people forget that it's not a mind. It is just really advanced autocomplete. It's not looking stuff up in a database. It's it's guessing what the
Yep.
next most probable word will be, which is not to say it's not useful. It's just not smart. So,
Exactly. I do like because I, do writing and speaking and things, outside of my day-to-day work. I do like that I can take, all these, I have like post-it notes everywhere,
mhm.
things that I think of, and I'm like, oh, that could be a good talk. Oh, I could do a paper on, or not a paper. I'm not in school anymore. I could, I could do, an article on this or a post on that. And being able to put all of that garbage in, well, I don't want to say garbage in because garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things we know about AI, but putting all of my crazy thoughts into AI and saying, hey, help me make sense of this, like make me an outline
Yeah.
or whatever. And then I can pick and choose and move things around. That is helpful. That has helped me a lot. So I do use it in that way, both at work and, my personal stuff. So yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
as
I
threatened by
agree.
it anymore.
I'm not threatened by it, but I'm concerned that people making major decisions that affect employee well-being and lives don't understand the limitations of the tool. And people are going to
Exactly.
suffer because of that.
Yep. It's already happening, I think.
Oh, it absolutely is. I've
Yeah,
I've been
it's
talking
already
to a lot of
happening.
people. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, there's going to be more of the bad for a while, I think. But I also feel like, in my day job, we are very purposeful about as creatives and, design folks, we're very purposeful about having dedicated I don't want to say committee, but it's a, a work group that we are given time. It's not like, hey, in your spare time, can you go like figure out like how we should be using AI and da da da. It's like, no, you can carve out this many hours in your week to test
Hmm.
things, document things. Let's have a team that looks at ethics. What is the ethical use of AI? And how is that impacting how we're using it, and then how we're putting it out there in our products and services. So I'm lucky in that regard that I'm given that those guardrails around experimentation and using tooling and kind of leaning into my curiosity because I was scared at first. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to learn another thing. Come on. And then it was like, well, if I don't learn it, I'm gonna get left behind. So reluctantly, but now I'm way more curious about it. And yeah, I think we've got some pain points still to get through, but I think we'll start to see that by necessity, we're gonna have to kind of rein this thing in. This thing,
Yeah.
these things.
That industry. Yeah, I wish I was hearing more about companies being thoughtful about the ethics and the guardrails and honestly
Mhm.
sharing the best practices because I mean, maybe it's happening just in places I'm not seeing, but I feel like this needs to be a broader discussion in
Yeah,
how we're to use the tools well, what guardrails there should be, and how to mitigate harm on vulnerable people.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you use that phrase. Actually, the conference that I was participating in, I gave a talk and it was titled Designing Against Harm. And it's one of those things where, everything has a trauma informed label, but honestly, it's very important to consider that in whatever type of work you do. And especially when we're talking about AI, because it's again, like you said, it's not a mind. It's a wiki. It's a whatever you want to call it. It's a collection of information that has, it needs guardrails. So yeah, stay tuned.
No joke.
Right.
So, what led to you writing a book?
Um, During the pandemic, I started doing more speaking virtually. I had kind of gotten started just before the pandemic. I stumbled into giving a talk. Who was I contacted by? It was an organization called Women Talk Design. And it's, their audience is like, UX designers, really designers and creatives of any stripes, right? But it's kind of a speakers bureau of sorts. And I was contacted by their then CEO, and they wanted me to be on a panel about public speaking, but within the design space. And I had given maybe all of two talks. And I'm like, are you sure you want me? Okay. Um, and through that, I started getting invited to speak about more things. Um, and so that same CEO, because I got very involved in Women Talk Design, reached out to me one day via email, and she's like, hey, Lou Rosenfeld from Rosenfeld Media wants me to make an introduction. Are you okay with me giving him your contact information? And I'm thinking, they give conferences and stuff, and okay, why not? And I had a conversation with him, and 25 minutes into a 30-minute conversation, it dawned on me that he was not asking me about speaking. He was asking me about, hey, so what are the questions that people ask you when you go to these conferences? And like, what are some of the things that people hit you up on LinkedIn about? And I had just had a bunch of people like reach out to me and ask me, like, how do you hire people like yourself? And how do you create a content strategy practice within a UX, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I want to hear more about this. Let's set up some more time because I'm interested in having you write a
Mm-hmm.
book. And I'm like, oh, okay.
The rest of us should be that lucky. Damn.
I was such a dork because I was just like, oh, I got off the phone and I remember going to tell my son, I was like, I just had a conversation with a book editor, like a publisher, and I think he wants me to write a book. And he's like, you don't know? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Was your son a teenager at the time? Because that sounds like a very teenager question.
No, he was definitely not a teenager. He's more in his mid late 20s, mid early 30s. Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, but
Close
still,
enough. Yeah.
it's just like,
It
don't
has
you
the
know?
yes, it has the shades of seriously, mom. Don't
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. But I was so in shock. I was just like, okay. Yeah. So that's how I stumbled in, and I literally had just had a conversation with a former design leadership member, the manager from McAfee at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
they were one of the people that reached out to me and just said, just randomly, look, I don't know if you have time, but I'm really trying to, build out this team, and they were not a content person, but they had responsibility over content strategists and, UX writers and so on. And they were looking for some help with like building out a team, what they should be looking for. And that conversation, along with having built out the team at that agency that I talked about when we first got on, and then later replicating that at a healthcare company. Yeah, I had a blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, and that theme stuck throughout the book. So there's building and construction metaphors all throughout the book because that's my jam. Again, a
So
mashup.
what's the title of the book?
So the title of the book is From Solo to Scale. I have one right here.
Woohoo!
From Solo to Scaled, Building a Sustainable Content Strategy Practice. Um, it really is, from my lens of UX, but I have been told by folks in marketing, I've been told by folks, that are not content strategists, but have responsibility for building UX teams and design teams, that it's been very helpful. Yeah, it's just all about it's a 5-step blueprint, kind
Mm-hmm.
of walks you through what you need to do, whether you're a solo person trying to build a practice or you're solo and trying to scale a practice, right? Or maybe you already have one and you need to kind of retool your practice. Now, here's the trick. This book was published to the world in July of 2022, and only there was whispers about AI happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months later, AI everywhere, and people weren't building content strategy practices, they were dismantling them. And I'm like, timing, what the heck? So
Wow.
the book continues to be useful and it continues to sell. And I am revisiting all the content and creating an, a self-guided online course with AI included now. So same material, but now enhanced, now with AI, so that
Oh my God.
folks can use. I know, right? I hate that I said that, but I mean that's what it is, right? Like it's so many different things as an aside where you don't expect to see now with AI, and it's just like I don't need AI on my cereal box, folks. What is going on? But
And I want to be able to turn it off. Like
yeah,
get with it, Facebook. Why can't I turn
exactly.
the stupid suggestions off? They're all dumb.
But I did find, or I have been finding, because I'm literally in the middle of building the course now, that um, AI can help to, again, everything
Mm-hmm.
from draft messaging to help, your cross-functional partners understand what content strategy and content design is. how it works with different disciplines. It can help you automate scripts for, white papers or one pagers or whatever. So I'm not so much leaning on, how to have AI do your job. It's like if you're building a content strategy practice, you're probably now working in a company where AI is somewhere, right? Somebody's
Yeah.
expecting you to use it. So here's how you can use it to your advantage to help build this practice that you want to be sustainable, whether you're one person or a person trying to build a 20-person team. So yeah,
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So,
Trying to stay relevant, you know?
yeah, we got about 3 minutes left. So
Wow, that time went by
it
fast.
does. It does. So you were out of work for a long period of time at one point, and a lot of people in the industry are dealing with this lousy job market and being laid
Yeah.
off and taking a long time to find a job. Do you have any advice for people?
Let me tell you. Yeah, I was out of work from February 2025 to basically October 2025. And it was scary. But I think the first thing I would say is that it's a loss. So allow yourself to grieve. But don't move in with that grief.
Hmm.
It's easy to kind of like kind of get deep into that. Take the time you need, though, right? Now, everybody's circumstance is going to be different because for me, it was like, I don't know how long I can afford to be out of work, right? I'm the sole income earner in this place, so I need to, I need to get on there and figure out what I'm going to do. Thankfully, there was a little bit of a package that I could lean on, but that's not everybody's circumstance, right? Or, situation. But the market is genuinely hard right now. And I think it's really important to allow yourself that grief, but also balance that with protecting like your sense of your professional identity as well as yourself. Um,
Hmm.
you know, it, you're not what your LinkedIn status says, right? You're not what your title says, right? At the same time, keep doing the work if you can, whether that looks like, while you're looking for, full-time employment, is there a nonprofit that maybe needs help with with their documentation or building a website or, can you write an article if that's something that you like to do? Do you like to do public speaking? Go to meetups and that kind of thing. Maybe you're teaching something or contributing to the community to kind of keep your skills sharp, right? So, I mean, those are two things. Just get specific about what you want to do
Yeah.
when you are out there looking. So, yeah,
And lean on your community because, it
absolutely.
can be so hard.
That was my last thing that I was going to say. Find your people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here on Technical Writing Uncensored, Natalie. Like you said, the time just flew by. I really enjoyed this conversation. And
Yeah,
everyone
same here.
watching, leave a comment. Let us know your take on content design. And we'll see you next time on Technical Writing Uncensored.
All
Bye for
right.
now.